Definitely, you've taken the crown from Mike in terms of one-liners there, that's for sure. I'd like to introduce you now to Dr. Ruth Appelbe from Indiver, Ireland. Ruth is going to chat to us about waste to energy, and in particular molecule management and closing the materials loop and the economic benefits therein. Over to you, Ruth. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So, thanks, Conor, for the introduction. And it's lovely to be here talking with everybody today. So my name is Ruth Appelbe and I'm working with Indiver Ireland. Indiver is a waste management company and we have been operating in Ireland for over 25 years. We operate right across Northern Europe and we try to operate in a sustainable way. So we're continuously, as Richard referred to it, continuously trying to do the plan, do, check, act and continuously improve in what we do. But one of our main focuses is on sustainable waste management and how do we deliver it for our customers. So what I'd like to go through today is circular economy, what it means for Ireland, what it means for Indiver, what it means for the waste industry, but then look at where we are today currently in relation to meeting our EU targets and meeting our national targets. Then I want to look at the need for infrastructure and the type of infrastructure that we have in Ireland for dealing with waste, and look then at a couple of projects in relation to innovation and projects that we're working on in Indiver. So, circular economy. What is the circular economy? The circular economy is driven by the EU Commission and it is going to deliver the policy for future, for our waste policy for the future. So it was currently being taken back by and reviewed again by the new EU Commission, and we're informed it will be coming along, but it'll be a lot more stringent than what we currently have. So what will it do? It'll challenge all of us in industry, whether we're producing, whether we're using, whether we're manufacturing, retailing, all to try and make better use of our resources. So that's our energy, our water, our raw materials. So we need to be able to use them in a better way and make better use of them. It also looks at recycling and recovery, and it drives our waste hierarchy, so moving away from landfill up through recovery into reuse and recycling. It also drives our Irish waste policy, and it drives our waste plan, both hazardous and non-hazardous. So the aim of it is to minimise emissions and our greenhouse gases. So if I look then at the Irish waste policy, the primary function of the policy is to drive our waste treatment upwards in the hierarchy, away from landfill and from disposal methods. It recognises waste as a resource and that it should be treated as such, which is how Indiver tries to operate. It promotes the principle of self-sufficiency, which is what we're trying to aim for in Ireland, is to become more self-sufficient in how we treat our hazardous waste and all of our waste. And this can only lead to a more sustainable waste treatment and competitive pricing in the market. The National Hazardous Waste Management Plan then also accepts the fact that as a country, due to our economy of scale and the amount of waste that we produce, a certain amount of our waste will always have to be exported. So there's never that strive for 100% self-sufficiency, but we need to be striving for more self-sufficiency. So if I then look at that's the future and what the circular economy is going to bring, how are we doing today against the Waste Framework Directive and our important targets that have been met? We've come a long way in Ireland in relation to how we look at and achieve our targets. So this is from the 2012 data, which was issued back in 2014 on our targets. So if I look at packaging and we've already achieved all of our targets there. So we're well on our way. End-of-life vehicles and batteries, we've made a lot of progress, and even between the 2011 figures and 2012 figures, we can see that constantly creeping up. So we're on our way there. There's a good bit of work to do still. Landfill directive would be a very important target and directive for all of us in the country. And we have already achieved the 2010 and 2013 targets for that, and we're well on our way to achieving the 2016 target, which is for the biodegradable municipal waste to landfill target. So this is the targets. Previously, there would have been a lot more red. We're leading the way in Ireland, and we would be one of the top, and if not second best, in Europe on achieving all of our targets. So that's the future, that's our targets, and how we're doing currently. And if I now look at how we're doing, particularly in Ireland, and what's progressed on the waste side of the business. So in the last 12 months, an awful lot has changed in the waste industry. If you look here, this is a picture of our Meath facility, a waste to energy, which was first in class for the country. That now recently, we have received our planning permission to treat hazardous waste, and we've currently received our draft proposed license for treating hazardous waste. So that's going through the process. We expect in the coming months to be able to take in hazardous waste. Currently from the pharmaceutical industry, we're already treating pharmaceutical sludges and industrial waste from a number of pharmaceutical companies in this facility. So again, we're moving up away from landfill and moving up the waste hierarchy to recovery. Dublin Waste to Energy got the green light, got the go-ahead last year, and is now gone into construction, and we expect to have that come on board in the next 3 to 4 years. So that will bring an awful lot of waste to energy facility to the eastern side of the business. If you look then as well, other waste changes, we now in the country have 2 companies that are currently blending solvent for use as fuel in Irish cement, in cement kilns. So traditionally we would have always sent these abroad and to European cement kilns. Now you have cement kilns in Ireland that are able to take solvent fuel, and we're now delivering that. So if you look just here as an example of what a solvent blending facility looks like. So this is moving up the waste hierarchy away from landfill into recovery, and fuel blending and reuse is what it looks like in action. So if I then go back to the hazardous waste, the report and the figures, we're currently exporting 48% of our hazardous waste that we create in the country is exported, okay? But the good side of it is that 52% of it has already been treated in Ireland. So 22% of that waste is treated by yourselves, the pharmaceutical industry, on site through solvent recovery, on-site incineration, etc. And 30% of it is already being treated by commercial hazardous waste treatment facilities right across Ireland. So we're already dealing with 52%. If I look then at the 48% that we export, 2/3 of that, so 66% of that is already going for recovery. So we're exporting it for recovery, and we're getting a recovery code for it. But 34% of it then is going for direct disposal. A lot of it to waste to energy and rotary kilns across Europe. But that's a good way to be, so we need to focus on becoming more self-sufficient here in Ireland. As long as we continue to rely on export, there's always going to be a challenge. For example, at the final quarter of 2014, we export some of our waste for both disposal and recovery to the UK. And the UK, we currently have an exemption. We're one of the few countries that are allowed export for disposal into the UK. That exemption ran out in the final quarter of 2014. And that led to a lot of interaction between the 2 governments to decide would they continue with the exemption or would they call a halt. So eventually they agreed, and the exemption was allowed through for another 3 years, I think it is. But at the end of those 3 years, it needs to be reviewed again. So we'll always, as long as we're exporting, we're always going to have this sort of challenge. We rely on being able to export to other companies and other countries, and other countries accepting it. So if I look then at, I talked about 30% of it is currently we're able to treat it in local industry in Ireland, okay? So we're right across the country, there are a number of the dots represent the waste licence. There's a lot of waste licence operators already in Ireland treating with different aspects. So what are the types of treatments that we have in Ireland? So we have thermal treatment. We're currently already dealing with some of the non-haz, but as I said earlier, this year in Indevar we'll be able to treat hazardous waste. You've also got physical chemical treatment, waste oil recovery, solvent recovery from a commercial scale, and as I said, you've got cement kilns now able to take hazardous waste and solvent fuel. So the one gap we have is we do need a national our hazardous waste landfill is one area where we don't have in Ireland and we will have to have in the future. And also additional thermal capacity is going to be required. Okay, so if I look at then waste to energy and how does it provide a sustainable waste management, how do we ensure that? So if I look at it here again, this is an example of Meath. Here is where the reception hall is what we call it. This is where the waste comes in. This is an example of a truck basically reversing to offload into the bunker behind the wall there. And that's just a picture of the plant. So why is waste to energy sustainable? First off, it is a recovery. As with the Waste Framework Directive, waste to energy is considered a recovery. So again, we're moving up the waste hierarchy away from landfill. So it does divert from landfill. And why is this good? Because the more we can divert from landfill, it means then we're also reducing our greenhouse gas emissions, because the less waste in the landfill, there's less methane released. So the two together lead us to a more sustainable waste management. Energy efficiency then is the most efficient way to treat municipal waste at the moment, and we're replacing fossil fuels, and it's also contributing to energy security and supply. So the waste to energy, because this plant runs 24/7, or waste to energy, it's more efficient to run it 24/7, it's a constant supply of electricity into the grid. If I take the Meath plant in layman's terms produces enough electricity for about 22,000 homes in a year. So that's a town the equivalent size of Navan. And also then it's renewable energy. And as I've talked about trying to achieve the waste directive targets and how we're doing on that, waste to energy facility also helps us to achieve our energy targets and moves us up towards the 40% target that we were talking about earlier. So if I look then at waste to energy and how it is in Ireland, if we look on the eastern side of the country, we have Meath. We will be able to treat hazardous waste in the coming future. I haven't included the Dublin Waste to Energy facility on this map because, as far as I'm aware, there's no plans for the Dublin Waste to Energy facility to be able to treat hazardous waste at the moment. But if you look at the map, the pharmaceutical industry, and there's a lot of industry, is down around in the southern part of the country. And this is an area where we feel needs additional thermal capacity in the country. So, I mean, you've got outside of Dublin, it's the second highest populated area. So we have the population, we have the industry, so therefore there's a need, in Indavar's view, there is a need for further waste to energy treatment in Cork. So our vision for Indavar's vision, we feel the time is right and the need is there for a waste to energy plant in the Cork region. If we ask what is the Cork waste to energy project, it is a 240,000 tonne waste to energy incinerator here, very similar to the type we have in Meath, but alongside it, a pre-treatment facility. This pre-treatment facility will allow us to pre-treat waste and to deal with more complex types wastes. Why now? The change in policy, if you look at the regional waste management plans, it has identified the need for 300,000 tonnes of additional waste capacity. And within that 300,000, it says we need to be able to deal with 50,000 tonnes of hazardous waste. So the policy is with us, and we feel the time is right for us to look at it. So what would be the benefits then to the customers? It would be a local, secure, reliable outlet, would provide a total waste management service for our customers. That's already being provided, but this would mean it would be closer, less transport, and a more local solution. One of the items, I'll go through it more in the next slide, but as well as producing electricity, we also produce a lot of steam. And one of the potential projects there then is to use that steam for local heat and work with different industries in the area. And I suppose it links in with, as the Minister said earlier, referred earlier to the similar project, so the wind turbines. So getting industry together and making the most out of what you have, and working together for a more sustainable future. Yeah, okay. So sustainability in action, this is just an example of of an energy cluster. So in our plant in Antwerp, here's the plant in Antwerp, our dual facility, and that's around with a local, we've worked with 5 different companies in the area, and we'll be basically producing steam, and our excess steam will provide steam, or heat, direct heat for those facilities. So this is a project where we're always challenging ourselves, try and become more sustainable. Another area that, when you're talking about waste to energy, bottom ash is a given, and the standard recovery is to use it as landfill capping or as aggregate in construction. We're challenging through research and development, trying to see, can we get more out of that hazardous ash, or the non-haz ash? Can we try and, isolate glass out of it, take out more heavy metals as well as the ordinary metals that we take? So we're constantly challenging ourselves, not only trying to deal with other people's waste, but how are we managing our own waste and becoming more self-sufficient. If I look then, just 2 examples of where we're working on for the pharmaceutical industry in particular. 2 projects that we're working on, iodine recovery. So the idea here is not to just look at the waste as its whole, to look at the waste and see where are the valuable molecules within that waste and try and get the best value that we can and reduce the total cost of ownership for customers. So iodine recovery, we've piloted both of these projects, so we've been able to successfully isolate iodine. So you separate the solvent and aqueous streams by distillation. You then do physical chemical treatment, and we've been able to isolate the iodine. So we've successfully done this for a number of customers on a pilot scale, and we're working towards trying to bring it into commercial. Then for palladium, palladium has always been recovered as its pure metal through catalysts. But what we're looking at is taking the rinse waters and the aqueous streams and actually then putting those through a resin skid and trying to isolate further the dissolved palladium and precious metals. So again, we've succeeded in that, and we've done it on a commercial scale. So we've done it on pilot scale for a number of customers, but we've gone into commercial scale. So the beauty of this is we have a skid, which is currently in our Antwerp facility, but this is the type of skid that's mobile, could come to a site and could work on a site as well. So it's completely mobile technology. So these are just examples of the type of projects that we're working on in Indevar to make us more sustainable in the future. So what I hope I've shown you over the last number of slides is where Ireland is in relation to delivering our waste targets set by the Irish Waste Policy and the EU Directive in Circular Economy, the types of infrastructure that we currently have, and where Indevar sees the need and requirement for more. And Indevar is always striving to continuously improve, and I hope I've shown you a few examples of the type of projects that we're working on in Indevar to become more sustainable. So I've mentioned throughout this presentation legislation and directives and meeting targets and policy. And as you're going out, we have a waste legislation guide if anybody is interested that we pull together, which gives the fool's guide to waste legislation. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Ruth.